Welcome to the Pinch to Zoom podcast, the show where we zoom in on the latest tech news, products, and trends. I'm Stetson.
I'm Gabe.
And in this episode, we are discussing APS-C versus full-frame camera sensors. It's going to be a good one. But first,
it's a showdown. It's a big debate. This is the debate of the century.
Basically, there's nothing bigger.
Okay, probably not the century, because you didn't have APS-C or full frame. Well, you had full frame, like 35 millimeter film.
But you didn't have the sensors. And then we didn't even have mirrorless sensors until recently.
Okay, so well, maybe it's the debate of the past 10 years and the next 10 years? Could we say that?
It's the debate of today. That's what we'll say.
Well, that is, all right. So this is only applicable on the day, that we're putting it out, and then afterwards people might as well not listen to this podcast?
No, they just have to listen to it every single day. That's it.
Okay, so today, as in whenever people are listening to it, it's the debate of... Oh,
that's correct.
This is very confusing.
It's the debate for us for this podcast episode. But first, we do have some quick news of some other things that are going around. Not quite as big as APS-C versus full frame, but I think still worth mentioning. Quick news. Gabe, I love that intro. I keep forgetting we have it. I'm so used to our old intro where we just say it, but hey, props to you. That was well done. Gabe, what do we have first up?
Let me hit you with another intro first.
Hey, it's Corona time right now. It's Corona
Yeah,
time.
I'm sorry to be, the bearer of bad news and continuing likely the news that you've been hearing all week. But yes, the coronavirus is a thing. We're doing a very quick segment on it right now in our quick news because we don't want to, we want to offer an escape from reality kind of a little bit in this podcast. So couple quick news things about the coronavirus concerning tech. First off, WWDC is going to be moved to online in June this year. That's Apple's conference. And also, they did cancel or close all their stores around the world. So, except for China. If you're in China, you can still go to Apple stores. But otherwise, all Apple stores are going to be closed. Nike stores are closed too until, I think, March 27th. So, a lot of stores closures. Cancellation of events has continued as well for tech conferences. We had NAB canceled. We had E3 canceled. And furthermore, as tech companies are pushing, for their employees to work at home, and not have to come into work and possibly spread the coronavirus, we had a novel idea by Facebook, who is offering to give away free portal video chat devices to their employees who request them.
Yep.
And this is a horrible thing. Why would Facebook want to curse their employees with a portal device?
All 4 portal devices that they made are going to be given away. I don't know.
Employees.
It kind of makes sense. Clearly, they're not selling well, and I think we know why.
Yeah, they probably have just their, half of their offices are just filled with boxes of portal devices. They're like, I might as well give them away to our employees. And who knows? Maybe actually this is when people will start buying stuff like that because they can't go to work. It's easier to just kind of, buy a portal device, and no, that's the real plague that we have to stop.
It is true. Gabe, thank you for that quick rundown of the corona-related news. I guess on a slightly similar but different note, we've mentioned Amazon licensing out their cashierless store technology, where they use cameras in the ceilings to monitor what you're purchasing, what items you pick up, and ultimately allow you to check out just by scanning your I think it's your Amazon app. They even talked about possibly scanning the palm of your hand to basically confirm your payment. But Amazon is going to be licensing out this cashierless technology, which, given the light of the situation of everything that's going on right now, could be beneficial because this means you may not have to interact with either one of those self-checkout machines or even a cashier at a grocery store, which could be more sanitary and faster for checking out. So you just scan your credit card or other payment method when you walk in through something that looks something like a subway system with a little turnstile gate. Then you do your shopping. Amazon tracks what items you purchase, and then you can just walk right out and they'll charge your card. So that is coming. We don't know when, but I think it's gonna make an impact in the shopping world.
And it will be in different stores, not just Amazon stores, right?
That's correct. So they're licensing this out to other stores and shopping experiences that will hopefully impact many more retailers. Apparently, they have agreements already in the works.
Nice. I imagine we'll see people trying to steal from those when they roll out, but we'll have to wait till then. Moving on, we have this is a big thing for me, drone news. Finally, And not just any drone nose, this is stuff from DJI. So we had our first leak at what is essentially going to be the Mavic Air 2. Now, it's not actually going to be called that, so it looks like we've seen the end of the Mavic Air line, because once they released the Mavic Mini, this past November, it doesn't really make sense to have a Mavic Air, right?
Gabe, what do you think this new drone is going to be called then?
So the leaked photos that came out do have the name Mavic on the bottom of the drone, but I'm going to guess they're going to actually call this the Mavic 2, and it will kind of be the standard version with, the Mavic Zoom and the Mavic 2 Pro being at the top, for I think the Mavic 2 Zoom is what, like $1,200, $1,300. Mavic 2 Pro is about $1,400, $1,500. So this could be, under $800, possibly $900, and will be a more affordable version, but still offer all of the same capabilities, possibly, maybe with a couple, slightly lower resolution, slightly lower bitrate or whatever, but still pretty close to the capabilities of the Mavic 2 Pro and Zoom, but at a cheaper price, because it's, now 2 years later or a year and a half later, and they've had advancements in technologies and can produce the drone for a much cheaper price.
What I love about the tech industry is honestly how fast things evolve and move. With this new Mavic drone, I'm imagining consumers are going to get a really amazing product at an incredible value, and it's only going to allow content creators like YouTubers and other kinds of producers to make even more amazing content. So that's really great in my opinion.
Yeah. No word again on, like, I'm guessing $700, $800, but no real word on price. And for release date, I'd say, because we're seeing it now, you could probably safely say it will be out within the next 2 months.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Moving on, we have some cell phone related news, because of course that is what I am passionate about. 5G has been basically deemed safe. There's been a lot of concern about 5G millimeter wave frequencies traveling through the air and the health repercussions or consequences of that. And multiple studies, as of right now, are determining that there is no scientific evidence of these millimeter wave frequencies causing heating or damage to the human body. So they're deemed safe. As of right now, the spectrum falls right below microwaves, and it will be something we're monitoring going forward. In other cell phone related news, there was actually just a recent auction where spectrum frequencies were auctioned off to the major networks in the United States. Carriers essentially are bidding millions and millions of dollars on which frequencies they want to own and operate in different areas. And this is going to allow them to build out their new 5G networks and hopefully improve coverage across the United States.
You mentioned the 5G being safe now, and it was funny because my hometown actually recently, and it's a tiny town of like 25,000 people, they passed a bill in their city council that was kind of banning 5G, I think for the time being, or at least limiting its implementation, which is funny because it's a very rural area, so I don't know how quick 5G would be implemented anyways, but it does kind of show that, these towns and like smaller places and even sometimes bigger places, people are actually kind of concerned about 5G and its safety, I think.
I think to some degree, we don't know enough about long-term impacts, but in the short term, from the studies we've done, it appears there are no scientific, measurable impacts on the human body right now. So I think we're going to be okay. And honestly, the technologies that 5G is going to be enabling are going to be huge. But I think we'll have to wait and see how it pans out across the United States.
Well, I heard one theory, too, that Russia is actually trying to scare people in America so that they push back against 5G, which will allow Russia to actually get ahead and have 5G implemented sooner.
That's a very interesting take on this situation. I kind of believe it. I really think 5G, it just enables so many new technologies with the faster travel rate of data transfer and the lower latency that honestly deploying a robust 5G network could be a huge advantage for more developed countries. So,
well, we'll hear more from you in the future, I think, possibly on that, because we'll talk about that once we get to Go review. But finally, the last thing that we have in quick news, this is big news for Canon fans, for mirrorless shooters,
Woo!
For pretty much anyone who cares about camera news. Canon EOS R5 is this camera, if you're plotting out what 2020 look like, it's this peak right now in the future that we're all looking towards. We know that Canon's going to release it sometime this summer, and we know it's going to have 8K video. They just confirmed now that it will, in fact, record 8K video at 30 frames a second internal, a lot of people have been like, oh, we'll only have 8K time-lapse recording, or, like what's, didn't really believe Canon saying it will have 8K video. So they did come out and again confirm 8K video is for real in this camera. We don't know if that will be, RAW or what color space or the bit rate it will be, but yeah, impressive full-frame camera with 8K internal. Again, I would stress that a lot of sites are saying this will only cost like $3,500 to $4,000 and be competing against the Nikon Z7 or the Sony A7R3 or A7R4, sorry. However, I think this will be a lot closer to and above like the Panasonic S1H, which is $4,000, and that's their 6K capable mirrorless camera. That's probably the price range we're going to look at for the Canon EOS R5.
I agree with that, Gabe. Canon is known for having higher prices on their cameras and gear in general, reserving the lower price points for more budget options. I think the EOS R5 is targeting higher level consumers, hopefully able to afford a higher price point. And with the features this camera is promising as of right now, with 8K 30 frames per second video using the entire sensor and advanced animal tracking autofocus, this is going to be one expensive camera. I'm looking forward to getting more details confirmed and learning more about the release date too.
I could also see them pulling a Panasonic and doing like all right, you can buy this for maybe say $4,500, but to get the 8K recording and those advanced capabilities, you have to buy like a $500 extra firmware like add-on package update thing.
I think that would be really smart. That would basically open up this camera to many more people and then allow the people who need the 8K to spend a little bit extra to get that. I think that's smart.
Well, that we'll have to see in the future if they're going to do the smart thing or the dumb thing. But that is it for quick news. Moving on, what do we have next, Stetson?
Gabe, we have our new segment, our Go Review segment, where one of us challenges the other person to go out into the world and pick a product or a service or an item, something along those lines, to go and review it. Last week, I asked, or 2 weeks ago rather, I asked you to review the Insta360 ONE-R, a new action camera from Insta360. So Gabe, what are your thoughts on this camera? What do you have to share with us from your Go review experience?
All right, thank you, Stetson. First off, I just want to tell people what this camera is if they're not familiar with it. The Insta360 ONE-R is a special action camera, 360 camera, because it is actually modular. So it's kind of like if you could imagine Lego making a camera that, could kind of pop apart, have a battery part, have a, brain / screen part, and then have a lens part. And you could pull that apart, say, I want the 360 lens, put that in, snap it all back together, and then have a 360 camera. And then say, oh, I want the 1-inch sensor thing, or oh, I want a bigger battery, snap it all apart, put it back together. Yeah, so it's right off the bat, an interesting design and, a new approach that we haven't really seen maybe only a couple times in like cell phones, but it was always those Kickstarters that never really went anywhere. But like people were like, oh my God, this is the modular phone of the future, right?
Right. I remember those. I think it was Project Aura, I want to say it was.
For Google, right?
Yeah, and the idea was a modular smartphone where you'd have different components that would snap into a main frame. It sounds like Insta360 has pulled this off with their ONE-R. Gabe, how has your experience been using this Lego-like construction of an action camera? Is it structurally sound? Does it work? Is the flexibility nice? What are your thoughts?
So I have used action cameras for a while. I haven't used many 360 cameras. So first off, because this does include a 4K action camera part, that basically is like for $300 you can get this as just an action camera.
It looks like a GoPro, right?
It's like a GoPro knockoff at that point. And I would say if anyone was thinking about buying this, $300, saying, oh, I'll save $100 off the GoPro 8, please do not do that, because this goes back to maybe the quality of like the GoPro 5, maybe even the GoPro 4. Like, it is really bad quality. It has the same specs as the GoPro and stuff, so it can trick you into thinking that. But besides just being, not that good quality, the screen is a lot smaller than that of the GoPro or the DJI Osmo Action. And the thing on top of, like, the icing on top of the cake of why this is so bad as just an action camera is that they use a specialized and a unique INVS video file format, which is for when you're shooting 360 video. It makes sense because it's using two different lenses. You have to put it into their own special app, combine it, you can do some cool editing, and then you export it as an MP4 file. But the problem is it doesn't switch over to just recording as an MP4 when you use that 4K lens module. So all the files that you import to your computer, you can't just simply drop into Final Cut Pro, into Premiere, to iMovie or whatever. You have to pull first into this Insta360 Studio app, convert them all over to MP4 file, and then you can finally work with them.
I'm very surprised to hear that, Gabe. This is such a new camera from Insta360 that I would have expected a much smoother workflow, but it sounds like it has lower quality than the GoPro, and it adds extra steps for the editing process. So as an action cam, you're recommending spend the extra $100, get the GoPro Hero 8.
Or even just get the GoPro like Hero 7. That starts for $329 new, sometimes even $300. Even the Hero 6, go with an older GoPro versus going with this if you just are looking for, your standard action camera.
Right.
Now, this is the big but I like big butts and I cannot lie. Anyways, if you are looking for a 360 action camera, I think that Insta360 is probably the best out there. I would, GoPro 8, their Hero 8 Max, which is a 360 camera, is very good. I've seen footage from it. I haven't actually used it, unfortunately. I can only afford so many GoPros and action cameras, but I would argue that's probably their closest competitor and maybe the one you'd look at alternatively to an Insta360 camera. But if you're looking to get into 360 video, this is probably your camera to go with because it does for $479, their twin edition bundle. You get that 4K action camera module, which I mentioned was complete trash. But if you want to, if you still want to have the capability to film like regular action camera type video, you can do that. But then you can slowly start to switch over to the 5.3K 360 dual lens module, which, as I mentioned, I have not had much experience filming 360 videos and editing them. But I recently went out tubing with my sister and her boyfriend, and we were doing some like fun tubing. And then I let the footage sit a while on my computer, and then I was finally like, hey, let me start editing this. And the thing that is so awesome in today's world where you have, vertical video, horizontal video, square video formats, which if you ever tried to shoot something and then be like, all right, now I have to re-edit this for vertical, which means I have to crop in a ton and lose all the, it's just awful. With 360 video, you essentially can just crop things however you want in post because you've captured everything when you are out shooting. So, say you want to crop something and do an edit that's 2.35 video. You can do that and you can change you essentially change your lens focal length in post by choosing how much of the frame you're, cropping out, cropping in, you're warping. And yeah, it's really fun to mess around with. And you can, in post, you can, pan from one part of the frame to the other. And that is what I would say is the real advantage that 360 video offers, is that ability in post, to go in and just edit whatever you want. Plus, you can use it on a selfie stick, and it essentially makes it look like the camera's floating in midair because it cancels out the selfie stick. Yeah,
I saw your videos, Gabe, and I was very impressed with the auto magic deletion of that selfie stick. I thought it did a phenomenal job. I couldn't tell it was there. The stick looked invisible. I was just a camera floating in the air, following you as you were tubing, and it looked like you even taped this camera to your boot or something. That was such a cool shot. So I thought that was amazing as a viewer, and it sounds like it was pretty easy for you, the creator, to achieve that effect.
It's really, at this point, I think I've been using GoPros for a while, I've been using drones for a while. Both those have kind of reached a point where it seems like pretty much everything has been done with them. There's slight improvements here or there, but they've kind of reached this point where it's kind of like smartphones, where it's like, nominal specs increase or whatever, but everything's, they're getting kind of boring. 360 cameras, I think, for the next decade are going to be what drones and action cameras and gimbals offered in this past decade.
Interesting. That's an interesting take.
That's my prediction, I'll just say. So, if you want to be on the cutting edge of what new is happening in video and using this as a new way to tell stories and a new way to film stuff, I would say that 360 cameras are where it's at. And for the price, potentially the Insta360 One R makes a lot of sense. The caveat is, I think they are going to release an Insta360 One X Mark II or whatever you'd call it, but a follow-up to their current Insta360 One X, which would be their more, this is their dedicated 360 camera. So if you really are looking to get into it, maybe wait for that because that will probably be a little more refined. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this camera. And, you know, check out on my YouTube channel. I should hopefully have an edit up on there with some of the footage. If not, on my Instagram and my TikTok, I have stuff. So it's, yeah, I would just say my ending thing would be, if you're looking for something new to spice up your videos, offer like a new workflow, a new way to edit, a new way to shoot, this is a really, really cool thing.
It sounds like it's basically in the name. It's the Insta 360 1R. So you basically want to get this camera for that 360 effect. Gabe, thank you so much for your Go review. Last time I assigned this to you, do you have a product, service, or idea for me to go out and review for these next 2 weeks here?
Yes, I do. As I hinted at earlier, you were mentioning and talking about 5G, how you think it's all so great. I want you to review 5G and give us an honest review of it. And more importantly, I want you to talk to people who, you know, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your friends, maybe you put a poll on Twitter, ask your Facebook friends or whatever, but I want you to get some feedback from regular people because personally, I think that 5G is a bit overblown and most people would just rather have better coverage or something like that versus like really improved faster speeds. So that's what I want you to go review.
Thank you for that assignment. Conveniently, I have spent, I think, almost $400 on cell service signing up for Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile to test out their 5G coverage on my Galaxy S20.
So definitely you have to include the cost to benefits.
I will include everything. I'm excited to honestly test this out for myself. And audience, stay tuned for our episode in the next 2 weeks where we come back and I'll talk about that. Gabe, I think it's time to dive in to the debate, the topic of the century, decade, era, eon of today.
We gotta take our places at the podiums, on the stage.
On the stage, in the boxing ring. All right, clothes are coming off. I'm shedding this. Here we go.
In my corner, fighting for full frame cameras. You know.
And in my corner, we're fighting for APS-C size sensors. I think we should get this boxing match started. Gabe, where do you want to start with this playing field?
Well, I think we have to start off by giving people some context of what it is, right?
I think that's a great idea. What do we have?
So what we're talking about here with APS-C versus full frame is we're talking about the size of the digital sensor that's in your camera, which, you know, it replaces, up until a certain point, this was film that would hit, the light would hit. Now it's all digital. So this is what, when you take a picture, this is on a DSLR, what's getting exposed when the mirror flips up for, you know, a third of a second or however long, the light's hitting that sensor. It's translating that into what you see in the final image. And yeah, it's essentially the eye of your camera.
It's taking light data and turning it into an image. And the different sizes are how big these sensors are. We have full frame, which is the largest, but there are some larger ones. But full frame is typically what you see as the larger size. APS-C is smaller than full frame. It's like a middle baby. And the smallest one is micro 4/3. And of course,
well,
in your
not the smallest one.
Well, in your smartphones and the action camera, like the Insta 360, that's where we have smaller sensors that aren't really for pro photography. So I think they're less part of this debate and topic right now. But you can see the range of sensor sizes in the different devices.
Yeah, the common things the common sensor size is pretty much full frame, APS-C, which can range a bit depending on the company, micro 4/3, which is popular, Panasonic, and I think who else uses them? Not sure.
They made it an open standard.
Panasonic and Olympus uses them too. Yeah, but it's an open standard. And then you have the 1-inch sensors, and that pretty much once you get below the 1-inch sensors, which ironically 1-inch sensors aren't 1 inch big. That's really the stupidest thing.
That's very misleading.
It's that they cast a 1-inch. I think they use a 1-inch circle in the lens. I don't know. There's something really weird. But yeah, basically once you get below 1 inch, it stops really being professional cameras. So we're focusing on everything up to full frame. Which, by the way, full frame is the size of 35mm film. That's the key.
That's where it got the name.
Yeah, for using the full frame. So I think, did we explain that pretty well? Hopefully.
I think so. I think we covered the different sensor sizes.
Maybe the only thing else to put out there is if you want to get a better idea of this, you can Google digital camera sensor sizes, and they have some good charts like showing them overlaid on each other, each sensor size, so you can really see the comparison of, oh, you know, like APS-C, I was surprised, is almost looks like half the size of a full frame sensor. It's
like if you were comparing TV sizes, you could easily see the different sensor sizes overlaid on top of each other, how they compare. So with these different sizes, Gabe, I would imagine there would be advantages and disadvantages to each one.
Well, no, there isn't. There's pretty much disadvantages to full frame.
Really? Gabe, you sound very confident.
That's the end of the debate.
Gabe is just starting to walk off the arena. Well, Gabe, get back here. I want you to pitch me what are the advantages to full frame? What caused you to get me to switch to full frame when I was previously shooting on Canon's 70D APS-C sized camera?
So I will preface this, even though this is a debate, I will say, stepping out from my debate role for a moment, I will say full frame is more expensive. You know, if you're getting a first camera, don't think you have to get full frame, okay? Now, stepping back
I will be bringing those up as I get my punches ready.
So why am I even bothering to help you?
You're just
stepping back into my
Gabe.
role. Full frame is offering you the best camera experience. You know, this is why 35mm film was the size it was. If you're shrinking down the size that light hits, it gets hard to really see what you're looking at. Imagine you're like, have your head covered in a plastic bag, or, well, maybe not a plastic bag.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a choking hazard.
Or if you have a mask on and the eye holes are only little pokes in them with like a pin, right? Imagine looking through that and trying to see the world. It's awful. It's hard to see it. You know, you can barely like really get a good idea of what it is. Or if you know you only have your eye open like a little sliver. But if you open up your eye more, you can see the world better. You let more light in. That's what a full frame camera is compared to APS-C. You're getting more information, more light. As a result, you're getting a better image. Color quality is improved. Dynamic range is improved. The low light quality and lack of grain is, you know, greatly increased. So there's no reason why you wouldn't shoot with a full frame camera.
Gabe, I respectfully disagree. For that bright, blinding light experience that you're talking about, you're paying significantly more out of pocket.
Yeah, quality isn't cheap. Sorry.
It's expensive, and I think starting with APS-C or even Micro Four Thirds is a better option for a lot of people. So taking a look at the camera I ended up purchasing, Sony a7 III, $2,000 body only. Looking for an APS-C sized equivalent, we're looking at the Sony a6600, $1,200. That is $800 in savings right there, and if you kit these out, you're looking at $2,500 for the a6600 with a 16 to 55mm lens, or $3,400, $900 more for the a7 III with the 24 to 105.
Well, you know what? I would say, how do you offset the cost, right?
Well, funny enough, you offset the cost with more benefits. That's right.
No,
not only is it cheaper,
you offset the costs by making money. That's how you pay for the more expensive camera. And guess what? A lot of people won't hire people who don't have a full frame camera. I agree a little bit. This is kind of stupid, those people. So sorry if that's you. But, you know, the fact that people will look at your tech and go, oh, I'll hire you or I won't. That's just the fact of, you know, the camera industry, the drone industry, really any industry you work in. So if you show up for, you know, if someone sends you an email, oh, hey, looking at hiring your photography services, I really like your work. Do you shoot on a full frame camera? And you can't go, oh yeah, you know, I'm shooting on the 5D Mark IV, I'm shooting on the Sony blah, 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 blah. If you say, oh no, I'm only shooting on a crop sensor, they might go, yeah, slow your roll, bucko. I'm going to go find someone else.
I respectfully disagree. Take the GH5, for example. This shoots internally at 422 10-bit, which we've talked about in previous episodes. This color codec provides significantly more detail than what my Sony a7 III is able to offer. I think the a7 III, it only records 4K at up to 100 megabytes per second. The GH5 can go up to 400 megabytes per second while recording 4K. Despite having a smaller sensor, it's actually capturing and recording 4 times more data while it's shooting video.
More data from less light and less stuff coming in. So it's making up data, isn't it?
No, you can get
Yes,
lenses.
yes, it is.
No.
That's the correct answer.
Well, you can get lenses that allow much more light to come in. And here's the other thing too. When you're switching from full frame to APS-C, if you're looking at those differences, a full frame lens is designed for a full frame sensor. So all of the light spills onto that sensor and is focused on the sensor. With APS-C or Micro Four Thirds, you can get lenses specifically designed for those sensor sizes that target and focus the light much better, delivering, in my opinion, extremely similar performance. And with the extra color data, I think you get an overall better image.
Well, you know what I think is a great example to disprove that is how it's not all about specs when it comes to video and, oh yeah, you can have a smaller sensor so you can have better specs. What new phone just came out that had really good specs but really small sensor? Oh, was that the Samsung S20? Or wasn't that? Yeah, that had 8K video quality. And that, wow, the 8K video, that sounds really good. I should get rid of all my cameras. Oh, but wait, that has a really small sensor, doesn't that? Yeah, that has a super small sensor. So, I mean, and that's good video quality though, right, Stetson?
I mean, I don't know what to say to this game. You basically have me pinned down or going in for the KO now.
This was a new tactical maneuver here.
I mean, the 8K out of the Galaxy S20, which has a super small sensor, looks like hot garbage. I think, though, with APS-C, I think the difference is much less noticeable when you're actually looking at cameras. And I also think there are added benefits to going with APS-C, because what Samsung is able to do and what all these APS-C manufacturers are able to do is build in image stabilization. You get IBIS, in-body image stabilization.
I mean, okay, well, hold on. All full-frame cameras have IBIS.
Not all full-frame.
Well, but
Plus,
not all APS-C have IBIS either, so let's...
Well, they can more easily integrate it into their cameras, and the cameras are much smaller, more portable, and lighter. And not only is the body cheaper, but the lenses are cheaper too. So you can instantly get high quality video at a significantly reduced cost and get the premium features of IBIS, image stabilization, image stabilized lenses. And I think just the value proposition of APS-C, in my opinion, is superior to full frame.
You know, I think if I'm going to carry around a camera, I think the weight savings between, an A6600 versus an A7 III, or, for example, a Canon, 5D Mark IV versus a Canon 90D, weight savings isn't that big of a deal, especially once you add a lens there. So what I'd rather, I'm going to carry around a camera anyways. I'd rather have a big differentiation between my smartphone and the camera by, for example, having a bigger sensor than, being like, oh, I saved a little weight, but I'm also not getting as good of quality.
I think you're really stretching the difference between the APS-C in a smartphone and a full frame in a smartphone. Like, compare your smartphone to an APS-C camera, the image quality is still going to be night and day. And it's going to be at a lighter weight than a full frame camera. The glass, the lenses, so much smaller. Take a look at Fujifilm's new X-T4. The lenses on that camera are so small, so tight, so compact. It is one of the best travel cameras coming out right now.
Arguably, I would say the best camera out there for traveling is a full frame camera, because what is something that you can't do when you're traveling and, you can't do when you don't have all your lights with you and stuff is, you don't have control over that lighting. And, you don't have time to set up the shot. So what do you need? You need the camera that, if you have to crank up, for example, the A7S III, if you need to crank it up to 400,000 ISO, you can do that. And yeah, the image might look a little grainy, but
I'd say it gets artistic at that point.
Well, at least you can do it. If you had to do that on a tiny little APS-C camera, you'd be looking at something that you couldn't tell, someone's hand from I don't know what. But yeah, it would just be complete grain. This at least is only a slight grain. And if you're going to just put it on Instagram, it'd be perfectly fine on that size. So I think that the camera that you need to have when you're traveling and when you're in an unpredictable scenario is, a full frame camera.
Well, I think the stabilization of APS-C cameras can help compensate for that. But Gabe, what's the other thing you want to do while traveling? You're going to an exotic place, you have these beautiful landscapes, everything is far away. And oh, what's that? You want to zoom in on a certain item, subject in the frame? APS-C cameras are perfect for this. Why? Because of something called crop factor. Now, technically, nothing is really being cropped out. The sensor is smaller and therefore just has a smaller field of view. But when you put your lenses on an APS-C sized camera, it'll effectively make the lenses 1.5 times what it says on the actual lens. So it'll help you zoom in to that subject that's farther away and get the
walking
shot.
in, all right? You can walk in a little closer.
Sometimes you
get
can't,
some exercise, get some more steps in. Your full frame camera that also weighs a little bit more too, so gives you a nice good arm workout, and when you're doing video, keeps it more steady. So,
okay, well, what if you're shooting wildlife? You don't want to spook the animals, right? You're just gonna
if you're shooting wildlife, that koala is gonna be like, oh, mate, he has a nice full frame camera. Oh, I better stay steady so he can get nice and close.
He'll walk towards you.
Wildlife recognizes the quality of a full frame camera.
So, Gabe, when you're out in New Hampshire taking a picture of a wild moose, you just want to go charging towards it with your full frame camera out. Ready?
The game is gonna recognize game. That moose is gonna say. He might start to run, but then as I get closer, he'll be like, wait a second. I thought that was an A6600, but now I see, that's a nice
Is that the
7.3.
A7S Mark III?
No, it's all, he's going to know, Moose are probably going to know that that's not the A7S Mark III, because that camera's not out, and they listen to our podcast and keep up to all the daily news, but they will know, oh, that's, the A7 III, that's the A7 IV, or A7R4, they're going to know that that's a full-frame camera instantly.
I think with wildlife photography, the benefits of being farther away are undeniable with APS-C. That's why you're coming up with this charging towards your subject.
Okay, I'll give you that. I don't have any defense there, but I will say that you'll get better pictures, with a full frame camera, and as a result, you can get the ability to afford longer lenses. So you can easily just get a teleconverter and get a better lens on there that gets you 600 reach. 600 millimeter reach, and then same thing, boom.
I guess to your credit, on the A7 III you can punch in. It does have an APS-C mode built in.
Yep. So you can easily just do that. And on the A7R4, which is 64 megapixels, 61 megapixels, the APS-C mode is still, I think, like 40 megapixels. So
that brings up a good counterpoint, though. For many other cameras, the APS-C sensor is still going to be that really nice high resolution sensor. And with that tighter zoom, you're basically getting much greater zoom at higher resolution.
But you know what you get with a higher resolution, smaller sensor, right?
What do you get?
Smaller pixels.
This is also true. Are you
Smaller
bringing back
pixels are like the boogeyman of photography, I think. They are creeping on the edges, always saying, oh, yeah, go for that, camera that gets super high resolution. Because basically camera companies have to strike a fine line between how many pixels do we pack into the sensor. Sure, we can put 96 pixels on there, but then this thing won't shoot at anything over, 3200 ISO, right? So they have to find the good balance. And I think it's a lot easier to find that balance, giving you a nice high ISO while also a good high amount of megapixels on a full frame camera than it is on an APS-C camera, because you just have a lot smaller, less real estate to deal with.
It's true. Full frame does perform admirably well.
I'll give you the wildlife thing, but you'll give me the
I'll give you the low light performance. I mean, it's true. Like, take the A7 II, for example. I'm basically taking your spot. Get out of this boxing. I'm boxing myself right now.
So we're switching sides now?
The A7
he just grabbed my jersey and ripped it off and put it on.
The A7 II is only a 12 megapixel full frame camera.
A7S II you're talking about.
Excuse me. Thank you for the correction, Gabe. This camera can basically see in the dark. The low light capabilities are truly phenomenal. Despite the lower megapixel count, on the full frame sensor, it just exceeds low light expectations and capabilities. And it's true, APS-C just can't do that. I will say for APS-C though, I think the portability, the utility for travel, being able to zoom in on things, and honestly for vlogging, Casey Neistat, David Dobrik, and many other YouTubers are using basic, simple APS-C, Canon 70D, 80D, 90D cameras to create amazing content, travel the world, and share it with a rapidly growing audience. So I think that just shows the versatility and utility of APS-C cameras in a fast-paced YouTube creative space. I think they're doing amazing things, and they clearly don't need full-frame cameras.
All right, I think we've gone deep enough debating wise, where we can just end it and give it a wrap up where we take off our jerseys, we come together, we give the listeners the kind of summary. I do agree with that. That yes, I think it's very much now, if you need a lighter camera that's only what you can afford or that's more portable, APS-C is the way to go in a lot of ways. And I think it's also we're predominantly focused on video, right? Both of us.
Absolutely. I mean,
I think for photography, I think I don't know. I was trying to think about this. I do know that, like you said, for wildlife stuff, sometimes people do prefer APS-C cameras. I have a friend who travels a lot. She actually carries both an APS-C body and a full frame camera body because
that mitigates the benefits of both.
It kind of does, but it's more like when she goes to her hotel, yeah, she brings both. But then when she goes out for day trips, if she's doing like a lot more crazy expeditions or hiking, she'll do the smaller body if she's doing wildlife stuff too. So I think for photography, though, ignoring that, I think a full frame camera is a lot more important, especially for like portraiture work where you do want that shallow depth of field.
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is for shallow depth of field, it is often easier to get a more shallow depth of field with full frame cameras because you're getting typically a larger entrance pupil, the lenses are larger, the sensor is larger, and you can be closer to your subject because you have a wider field of view. But it is possible to replicate or get very similar results with APS-C cameras. You're just going to have to swap out lenses, get a faster aperture, and readjust your position. But I think really, like, my advice would be to write down what qualities and attributes are most beneficial to you in a camera. If you're someone who's going to be shooting a lot of wildlife, I think getting an APS-C camera makes sense for that kind of use case. If you're going doing portraiture or low light photography, I think you're going to enjoy the benefits of full frame. And I think if you're someone who's shooting video, you may just want to take a look at the cameras that meet your video specific needs, whether if it's shooting in a flat color profile, or for me, getting a flip out screen, it turns out is very helpful for me. So I want a camera that has that. But yeah, I think...
Now, I'll be interested in, because you are thinking of, you mentioned, I think, the X-T4, right?
Yeah, so basically, I came to realize, Gabe got me to switch to the A7 III, and many YouTubers claimed it was one of the best cameras out, and it is. But it's the best camera for their use cases. And I realized my use case is different. I really need the flip out screen. Like, that is a huge benefit for me, and I really enjoy the light, portable form factor that APS-C has offered. So I was actually like browsing around, and again, with these prices being so much cheaper, I was interested and intrigued by the GH5, the Sony a6600, and the X-T4 with all the features it offered. So I did place a pre-order for the Fujifilm X-T4, and I'm interested to see how that compares. But yeah, what was your question?
What I was going to say was, I think it's going to be interesting to see what you think about it. But it's really because I was going from my experience basically. I went from Canon T4i, right? And then I had that for probably about 2-3 years, right? So, and that was probably about a year-old camera when I got it, anyways. And then I went to the Sony a7S II, which was a full-frame camera, costing I think 4 times the price. Like, it was, the T4i was about $800 I think, and the a7S II was $3,200. So yeah, 4 times the price.
Wow. And
it was brand new, like 3-4 months old when I got it. And so I think this is a route that a lot of people take, though, when they start off with an APS-C camera, they have it for a couple of years, start to grow their business, start to grow their experience, then upgrade to full frame. And the problem is their experience is going from a older camera, cheaper camera, to a newer camera, more expensive camera, full frame. And so their opinion's kind of jaded, I feel like. Looking back and reflecting on myself, I feel like it wasn't a fair shake for me. I didn't go out at the same time and buy 2 cameras that were close to the same price point. One was APS-C, one was full frame, and try them out. I was, doing the path I took, and that made me go, oh, full frame is way better. Why would I ever go back?
Right. It sounds like the generational differences in the overall technology had a huge impact. Like 4K basically
and the
wasn't
price.
out. Yeah, 4K wasn't out when you were shooting on your T4i, and then all of a sudden you made this huge leap into the future of...
It would be like if you went from, like the Samsung S6 to the iPhone 11, right?
I would say like a
Pro.
Galaxy S3. Go far now. Maybe not that far.
No,
but
like let's go like the S6 to the iPhone 11 Pro, and you were like, Android is horrible. Why would I ever go back to Android? Apple is obviously the way to go. Or if the opposite, if you went from, iPhone 5 to, the new S10 or S20 now we're on, and you're like, wow, why would I ever use an iPhone again? So I think it's kind of the same thing. And I don't think also you're going from the A7 III now possibly to the XT4. It's a little better comparison, but I still feel like you'd have to go with a newer full frame camera to really get a good comparison.
I think the A7 III is pretty new. I think maybe going with the A6600.
Buddy, it's 2 years old.
Jeez, is it actually? Have I had it for that long? Wow.
It's amazing how quickly it aged.
Yeah.
But I think you'd have to go with something like the A7R4 possibly, even though that's a lot more expensive. Maybe something like the Nikon Z6 or Z7. I don't know.
To try and get a more fair comparison.
Just to try to give it, it's hard because like a full frame camera is always going to be more. So to really get a good comparison, you have to go with like a full frame camera that's fits in the scale of how expensive full frame cameras are. So right, if full frame cameras, what can we agree, like $1,500 to $4,000 is a price range?
I would probably start it actually at $2,000 because I paid $2,000 for the A7 III, and I think it's around that right now.
So $2,000 to $4,000. What about APS-C cameras?
I think it's okay to start. I mean, for some of the point and shoots, that's like $800. Like
no, not point and shoot. We're talking DSLR mirrorless.
Yeah,
I think probably like $750 though.
That still could be around $800. But I think if you want to get a nicer one, you're looking at probably $1,200 for the body, something like that.
Well, but total price range is probably like what, $800 to $2,000, $800 to $2,400.
Yeah, $800. I think $2,400. You're getting a really nice body and you're getting a really nice piece of glass.
Yeah. So, exactly. So if you wanted to get like comparable ones, you'd have to go, maybe like $1,200. That's like kind of in the mid range camera, and then you'd have to go like $3,000 almost, or $2,800 for the full frame. I
think comparable. I mean, I was speccing out an A6600 versus an A7 III. That was just what I was using, and I was getting around $2,500 for the A6600 and $3,400 for the A7 III with pretty comparable specs.
But the problem is the A7 III's older though.
Sure, so it might be a little bit more. It might be $3,600 or $3,800 when you kit it all out and compare them, I think. What do you mean? Oh, when you got a brand new one, or if you went with I think you said the A7R III or something or the A7R4. The A7R4, yeah. If you went with that, I think it'd be even more expensive. Well, that one starts at $3,500, so it'd be like $4,500. Yes, but I think that would be a more accurate comparison, though, because they have, as far as like technology within it, they have the same, software for autofocus and stuff. They have the same processors. It's designed at the same time, so the only thing you're really comparing is that sensor difference. I appreciate that. I think that's a good insight into this. And one thing I do wish is that camera manufacturers updated their software more regularly. I think something interesting is the XT3 is using the same sensor and processor as the new XT4, but the XT4 can shoot at 4K 60 frames per second, whereas the XT3 is limited to 4K 30 frames per second. Theoretically, I think a software update using the same hardware should be able to enable those additional capabilities in the XT3, but it looks like for some reason it may be disabled. Yes, no, maybe so. I'm not really sure exactly what it would entail, but it does seem on paper like it should be able to. And you're right that companies traditionally don't want to offer that update, because why would they offer you an update if you can be sold a new camera? I also want to say what's appealing to me is I look at myself when filming in my studio, and that's important to me. And the A7 III will not use continuous eye detect autofocus when it's plugged into an external monitor, which is what I need to see myself. The A6600 can now do that. So that is just like,
well, but that's a newer. That brings up my point of it being a new camera.
I think that reinforces your point. And the last thing I want to mention is that we didn't really talk about lenses so much, but I think like there are some incredible new lenses for full frame cameras. I want to give a shout out actually to Canon's new EOS R series. Like the lenses they are making there are really nice. But on the flip side,
very limited, unfortunately.
Very limited, but very nice. On the flip side, with smaller sensors, APS-C and micro four thirds, the lens selection just becomes so much greater because you can adapt and get full frame glass on your smaller sensor size if you choose.
Well, I would say that's something you can do, but it potentially isn't really taking advantage of the big thing with the smaller APS-C. I don't know why I keep wanting to switch those letters. APS-C. Sensors that you can get glass that offers the same capabilities of a full frame f1.4 lens, but it can be f1.2, f1.1 even, and be smaller.
It's true. It's really cool. Either way, I think that's all I have, and my recommendation is again figure out what needs you have either for photography or videography, and then find the camera to fit your specific needs. I personally feel that if I had done that, I may have gone with a different option than the A7 III because I'm realizing now that some of the aspects of it are, instead of enhancing my workflow, causing slight quirks or bottlenecks that I would appreciate if I could find a way to get around them. And that's what's causing me to look at new alternative cameras.
I wish you good luck if you do switch to the Fuji X-T4. I would probably never switch from full frame, at least at this point. And also the other thing you need luck with is switching operating systems on a camera. Is you're going to be good luck. You're going to be up a creek without a paddle for the first, probably I'd say, month. That's kind of how it goes. But it's amazing how quickly then once you get used to that, that's what you know.
It's true. And I think we live in such an exciting time where basically all cameras coming out now are amazing, packed with features, packed with incredible performance.
Except for the Canon Ivy-Rec Mini.
Except for the Canon Ivy-Rec. Thank you, Gabe. I was thinking we hadn't brought that up in a couple of episodes. It was good to just...
No, we have our checklist of like things we have to trash, the Facebook portal and the Ivy-Rec Mini. Yeah, they hadn't been trashed in a while, so we got them both in this episode. We get a bonus.
And I think that's it. I think we're both winners in that sense. We hit all our check boxes, we put up a good fight, and we ended as friends. I think that's going to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, stay healthy, people. Don't get the coronavirus. Stay home, possibly. I might be doing some gaming. I know I sold my Xbox One. I might be having to get back into it, though.
It may be time to get back into that. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Pinch to Zoom podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Pinch to Zoom Pod, on Instagram at Pinch to Zoom Podcast, and you can email us, pinchtozoompodcast@gmail.com. I'm Stetson.
And wait, should we be on Twitch now too, though?
Oh my gosh, Twitch is going to be blowing up, given all the time people have right now.
Yes.
We'll have to think about that.
We're going to be on it at... No, we won't.
Company meeting after this podcast.
All right.
Wait, did you say that your name was Gabe and we can leave now? Or
nope, my name's now twitch.gabe.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you in the next episode. Do you brush your teeth before you film videos?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to say, I really
have to.
3 p.m. gonna film a video. Oh, gotta go brush my teeth.